We would now speedily review some of the issues that made it to the front page of the newspapers this morning, or rather select newspapers this morning, and we will begin with the Daily Trust. This morning, the Daily Trust is slightly different. Security agencies infiltrated by fifth columnist, Plateau State Governor, sabotaging prompt response to distress call. Many have no legitimacy to remain in service. We will study the allegations. This is coming from the military, and you'll find the details of this on page 4.
We always talk about open secrets. This is like an open secret.
That's
that
right.
We know that, as proactive as our security forces are, you always get a sense when some of these developments happen, whether it's kidnapping or attacks on communities, you get a sense that probably someone from within help facilitate that to happen or turn the blind eye. That's why some of these things happen.
Yeah, stories abound of how checkpoints are dismantled moments before major attacks, only to return after, and how attacks last for 2-3 hours, and contacts were made with them and no response until these guys are done and probably had left for safety. I mean, it leaves you wondering what the motives were. And we have pictures there on the front page the day after the Bodija explosion. I mean, these images, every time you look at them, you get a sense of something worse than has been described by the media. It feels like a war zone, basically. The level of destruction. You begin to imagine the size of dynamite, that would have impacted on this environment to cause this kind of, if you look at the radius, you were talking about a 10-meter radius, that's huge. We see
quite a lot.
Other images.
However, on the positive side, I think the emergency response was good.
Maybe that was also aided by the fact that the governor was on ground. He was practically the one giving the incident update. I think he has done about 3 or 4 briefings since this incident, and perhaps because he was on ground, you could see that the response was prompt, and all kinds of equipment were deployed to see how much they could salvage out of what had happened. And I hope somehow we can also do other environmental impact assessment, because most houses in that vicinity were heavily shaken, and who knows, they may just be sitting.
Structural integrity might be compromised.
Yes, might be compromised. I may just be sitting on a keg of gunpowder. And 2 other stories: how illegal miners' explosive wreaked havoc in Ibadan. Residents flee 10 Zamfara communities after bandit threat. And this is the point. We don't have to wait for these things to happen. We just have to hit the ground running and stop these guys right on their track. I don't understand why we are not the one on the offensive. We've got the materials and the logistics to be chasing these guys. Let them be the ones struggling to settle, rather than sit, get notices from them, and watch them actually keep faith with what they had promised. This
is likely a rhetorical question. Does the government care enough to do something about this? And I think the answer is obvious. Because you go to Gusau, we've done so many documentaries about it. Daily Trust has covered it. It's littered by displaced people who have had to run away from their communities for the fear of attacks by bandits, and the government is still there, watching these developments continue to unfold. Let's switch gears now, bring you up to speed with the headlines across the front page of the Nation newspaper for today. CBN to crack down on forex violators. Apex Bank goes tough. We've been here before, haven't we? What's different about this one? Page 7 tells you more. NERC OK's hike in electricity tariff. Wow. Sector to get 1.6 trillion naira subsidy. Okay, so how do you square this circle? Subsidy on one hand, tariff hike on the other hand. So, I don't know. It's a bit of a confusion for me there. If the government is, on one hand, allowing for the prices to go up, but also subsidizing it, it's, I don't know. Maybe we'll get to the analysis a little later. Jimo Ibrahim rallies support in Davos for Tinubu's policy. Edopo Igodalo joins race as Labour Party pegs form at 30 million naira. Talk about monetizing the system. Right there, the first picture on the front page of The Nation, you can see Governor Makinde on another visit to the incident site at Bodija after that explosion on Tuesday night. Ibadan explosion, 3 dead, 77 injured, 58 houses damaged. And I think within the past few hours, the government has confirmed that 60 of those who were being attended to at the hospitals have been discharged. How explosive boomed, I think, okay, by residents. Federal Executive Council OK's review of laws on explosives. Akintola Oladokun Olajide lose buildings. Police tighten security in Lagos. And this two unmistakable images of Dangote and Femi Otedola, of course, stands out.
He calls him his bestie.
Yeah, I mean, how come I don't have a best friend like that who has so much?
Well, maybe he's your guy. As one of the musicians.
We all need friends like this.
Like
you grow together, you grow in terms of everything. But it's good. We love to see that kind of healthy, relationships, just so it can serve as motivation for.
It wasn't always healthy. There were times that they went head to head,
right?
And their businesses against each other. But somehow they broke.
Now there's an alignment.
Yeah,
and I think this relationship.
At 60, there is really nothing to compete for anymore.
It's beyond business, and that's a good thing, really. Crowdfunding for ransom payment will worsen kidnapping, says federal government. Inspector General raises squad, and Federal Capital Territory will be hot for criminals, says Wike. How about we make it hot and then we say it's hot for them? Obi of Onitsha tackles Soludo for suspending monarchs. And there's a lot more on page 6 on that story.
All right. The papers are virtually leading with similar stories. You also find images there of, on the Guardian newspaper, I beg your pardon, you find images of the one-time destruction that was left behind after that attack, after that explosion in Ibadan 48 hours ago. Looking at the Vanguard this morning, the major stories there read, kidnapping, we will make it hot, too hot, he said, actually, for criminals. Right now, it is the citizens or residents of Abuja that are finding it hot, by the activity, the encroaching activities of these criminals. He says enough is enough. Slams, informants. You won't sleep well again. Well, we hope so.
Are you impressed by statements like this?
It has to go beyond rhetoric.
It should be a given.
It has to go again because
this should be a given.
I have two close friends that were forced to abandon their houses and relocate to the city center. They are now cramping up in a small hole somewhere in the city center because they are no longer comfortable. It was getting too close for comfort. And they are closed. They close very late. Their own homes. Yeah. And abruptly have to remove the children from the schools where they were attending to some other arrangement here in the city. It's not a deal at all. For what it is worth. These are not things you plan for, and you now have to cough out only God knows how much to get to some of these places. Buhari defends Emefiele on Naira redesign. Basically, he was saying that it was the reason why the election was successful. He has a different reading of all of the things that are happening.
Nigerians have a different reading of
what's going on.
He's saying after that.
Yeah. FS backlog. CBN uncovers abuses, vows, sanctions. And AFCON 2023. Today is another important day with history. We are going head to head against the host.
Manage your expectations. No, wait. Lower your expectations.
So that you will not be disappointed.
Yeah. Well, it's Cote d'Ivoire, so it's not just another African team.
The Vanguard is saying Super Eagles in search of redemption. If we're taking our chances, we probably would have managed to draw today and go against the Gideons, but we didn't do that. Somehow, we do seem to enjoy being in the corner before we redeem ourselves. I hope it comes true for these people. The last time we won it, we drew the first 2 matches and won the last group stage and went on to win the trophy. I hope it is the same thing that is playing out.
It's the hope that kills. It's the hope that you have with you right now.
Yeah.
That is going to hurt you at the end of the day.
Oh, well, I hope we find a reason to smile. There have been too many negative stories in the horizon in the last 2 days, and we can do with one good story from AFCON. And that's it from the front page of the Vanguard newspaper.
Okay, let's quickly just take a look at the News Direct. A lot of the front pages are reflective of similar stories. The News Direct, well, it does have a different headline, top story, doesn't it? Federal government eyes $1.5 billion loan, $1 billion loan, I beg your pardon, from the World Bank. Again, considers tapping domestic dollar savings. Federal Executive Council insists student loan will launch as scheduled in January. Well, how much of January do we still have left? Less than 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
So let's see what happens. NBC has no power to fine media houses. Yes, that court verdict
That was
yesterday.
one good news yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Because those sanctions sometimes are politically motivated.
Yeah.
Those fines are, politically motivated, and it's not good for the profession and also for Nigerians who really need those unbiased views and takes on the polity. Tragedy as driver crushes Oshun teacher to death. My goodness. A very sad development there. NCC grants Globacom 21 days extension to resolve interconnect debt owed MTN halts disconnection. So you can still call your MTN lines as the NCC looks into this quagmire about an explosion.
The interesting aspect of that conversation is the fact that Glo continues to say,
Deny.
or rather deny, that it owes any amount. So what's happening? Is it that they have done the transfer and somewhere the money is hanging somewhere? We did take 21 days to
imagine
confirm
the irony.
that payment had been
Imagine
made.
the irony, a telecommunication, and they do have the monies, to be honest. So on the Ibadan front, 3 confirmed dead as government indicts foreign minors. And I think that's the Minister of Sports there in that picture.
If it was a different crime, we should have been seeing the names of possible
arrests.
We should have been hearing about how they even came into this country in the first place, whether or not they attempt to get a license, and how did we conclude that these guys are illegal.
Exactly.
We should be hearing about how those bombs were assembled or conveyed to that spot. Whatever it is, beyond just saying illegal miners that in this case are not identified. Well, that's the much we would look at this morning. We now have joining us in the studio, as usual, the editor-in-chief of Dateline newspaper, Malan Nasrullah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Let me leave what I want to say to my thoughts and go straight to the paper review. Last week you were here. Abdullahi wasn't. Abdullahi bailed on me, so he hadn't the opportunity to.
I'm sure I wasn't abdicated. I'm sure Mardia stepped up and something was done.
Yeah, that happened. Okay, looking at the papers this morning. Yesterday, it was Governor Mafwang of Plateau, expressing a variety of views around a number of issues in Nigeria, but particularly on the security situation in the Plateau, and how he thinks that the military has been infiltrated by a fifth columnist, and a number of suggestions around state policing, as well as the right for communities to defend themselves. What do you make of some of the issues that have arisen from the perspective he expressed?
Well, what the governor said is actually true. Even though they are not new, they are things that we all know. Even the military has had, instances where they have prosecuted their own soldiers, for collaborating or for conspiring with criminals. So actually, this is not new. What I would have expected, even though the military is telling us that they are studying the allegation, I don't think this is something that they need to study. This is something that they just
zero in.
And take, headlong, so that, they deal with whoever is having, any connection, to criminals. And then he mentioned something in the interview which had to do with the fact that, sometimes the military or the security agencies will go arresting, the residents who will be wielding some machetes and what have you, instead of maybe supporting them, so that because they are actually trying to maintain security. And the military should also understand, or the security agencies should understand, that anytime you see people wielding weapons, it's an indictment on the security agencies. Because
you're not doing your job, and that's why we have to defend ourselves.
Because people have so many things to bother about. So if they can do without having to bother about their security, honestly, the better for them. But they have to do it, because unless they do it, they will be at the mercy of, terrorists, criminals. And this is not something that the military should waste time investigating.
Something it's instructive about some of the things he said, especially at the border. Do you get a sense that in our own case, we have a system that allows a different security agents to sort of oversight what one of them is doing? Because in this case, it becomes difficult for you to purge yourself of some of those elements. In the US, for instance, sometimes when there are allegations of issues that borders on the operation of the FBI, you find the CIA doing the house cleaning for them, and if it borders on the CIA, the FBI is sort of coming, and so that the process is legitimate, it is trusted by everybody, and you don't have people trying to close their or cover their tracks while those things are. Do you get the sense that we have those kind of things in our claim?
Well, sadly, in our own claim, our security agencies are always competing for the wrong reasons. Sometimes you will see maybe the civil defense, arresting some suspects, and before you know it, the police will also be claiming, the same thing, rather than, cooperating so that, you can face all the criminals. Because right now, with the number of security agencies we are having, and the ones that are, begging to be established, like the Peace Corps and what have you, we're heading towards a proliferation. But we don't see the result. The only thing we see most of the time is actually the security agencies showing their influence where they shouldn't. Like when they're dealing with citizens, with civilians, you see them like showing all their strength and what have you, while the criminals are all over the place, right, having a field day.
Part of that conversation, the idea of state policing also came up. What are your thoughts about whether we have seen enough to warrant not just further conversations or discussions, but like an action plan to really come up with something that looks like a state police, or that would eventually become state policing? Because we need to decentralize the current system that we have right now to attend to all these myriads of challenges.
That's very true, but honestly, my own argument will be if we strengthen the local governments, especially if we make them functional, so many of these things honestly will disappear, even without the state police. I'm not saying the state police is
something the state governments are not willing to do.
The state governments have taken over like not the responsibilities, the finances of the local governments, but then they don't want to do any of the responsibilities. Because if you go to the local governments in the past, they know the people that are within the community. The traditional rulers also have a role. If you have a stranger, if you have a visitor, somebody that is coming into the community for the first time, people are aware, they know how to handle him. But right now, nobody has that strength, because we've taken away the ability of the local governments to actually run the way they are supposed to. So unless we do that, even if we are to have the state police, honestly, I don't see us achieving much without, giving the local governments the responsibility, their finances, the autonomy that they require, so that they will play the role that we expect of them.
Okay, just to double down on that, while we're still talking about security, the federal government yesterday talked about ransom payment and how it should not be supported, especially with this element of crowdfunding around Nabiha's death, which has stirred yet another national debate about what is currently happening right now. We have had a former minister, immediate past minister, lend his voice in that. I know the intention is to help secure the release of these abductees, but now the Minister of Defense is saying, listen, we have a law that frowns at what Nigerians are trying to make popular right now. In fact, the Minister of the FCT said, we're encouraging them to do that if we continue paying ransom. It looks like a typical conundrum, isn't it? Yeah. It's not that you can guarantee security, but when people are trying to help secure the release of their loved ones, they're also being criminalized for it. I mean, what is your take on this whole ransom payment conundrum?
Again, it's an indictment on the government, and its agencies. You think people want to spend their money just like that?
Monies they don't have.
Monies that they don't have, the fact that they have to go crowd funding, that shows you that it's something that they just had to do so that they can free their loved ones. If our security agencies are up to the task, we wouldn't be having all this situation. So I find it unfortunate that a government, official will be coming out to speak in this manner. Yes, of course, we have a law that frowns at the things like he said, but we also have the security agencies which are there by law to guarantee safety of the citizens. So if you are failing in your own responsibility, honestly, you shouldn't blame the citizens, for also doing what they think they have to do so that they can free their loved ones.
Yeah.
Another issue that made it to the fore, it's the information from the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission around a possible tariff hike in 2024. Well, the law guarantees that they can do that twice in a year, but now they are saying there will be a target of a monthly increment, as the case may be, to reflect what the market situations may be, but also the disclosure that the government will spend over 1 trillion on subsidy. On the one hand, it does appear that we don't like the conversation around subsidy, but we know how much we're about to endure the removal in the case of fuel. How do we find the balance between enabling this discos charge a market reflective tariff to enable them expand operation and sustain the activities on the one hand, and not overburden the average Nigerian who is already dealing with the cost of living crisis arising from all of the increments that we have seen in the year that has just passed?
I think it has to do with the effects of deregulation, of the sector, because all those that have invested in the power sector, they are doing it to make money. They are not like engaged in it for anything sort of charity or what have you. So the government, of course, is mindful of that, so that whoever invested his money, will also have a chance to recoup his investment. But then we should also look at the fact that right now the power situation is still not improving. When you are not giving us, like, we are not seeing any improvement in the distribution. So why should we be asked to be paying more for something that is virtually not even there? Right now, I don't think we are still able to utilize, is it 5,000 or what? Where
the 12,000 installed capacity
that we have. Are we able to utilize it? No, but we are still like pushing all the things to the people so that we get to collect the little money that they are making from their own sweat. Honestly, I don't think this is a good thing to do. The government should allow, of course, the investors to do what they are supposed to do, but then they should play the regulatory part so that what they are able to what they are supposed to achieve, they are forced to do that, so that we don't allow them to just be making money while they are not giving us the services that we need.
Do you think these reforms are well targeted? What we've been seeing from the Tinubu administration so far, how it is, on one hand it appears to be bullish on the first day. No, it wasn't literally even in the office yet. On the podium as he was being sworn in, subsidy is gone, and that's how he rolled. And now we're seeing this. There's the cherry picking, all of these sectors that are still crucial to the economy and crucial to the lives and livelihoods of Nigerians. But do you think that we're seeing signs of a positive change?
That's what some people are saying, but honestly, I don't see it from the developments that I see. Like take the forex issue, for instance. They said when they deregulated it, everything will now, be good, but we're still having some challenges. They are still threatening to deal with saboteurs. The saboteurs, and then you allow them to be wreaking havoc on the economy, on the people. So honestly, I don't see much hope from things, that developments at the moment. I don't see us like exiting this conundrum in the shortest possible time.
All right, moving on to Bodija. We were all confused 2 nights ago when those explosions were rocking. For some, it was gas explosion. For others, I'm there after, within minutes or hours of the events, the governor confirmed that it was explosive from illegal miners. And looking at the topography of that area, you'll be wondering why an illegal miner would choose that kind of place, to store explosive or even assemble explosive. We don't have much details around these incidents, but I would like your perspective around how the rescue activities have been coordinated, and what more we can do to avert situations like this across, because we know of the incidences of illegal mining just around everywhere, especially in the northern part of this country, from Zamfara to Jos. And sometimes you're sitting in your house right here in Abuja, where quarry miners are operating, and you just get an explosion without a warning, and you wonder whether these are precision dynamites, because they shake the foundation of your building so hard, and you say, are these regulated activities, or people are just indiscriminately applying these things? I would like your thoughts on that.
Well, the problem is we know the illegal miners, and then we're not doing anything about them. And then why should we allow miners to keep explosives in residential areas, when we know that these things, require, careful handling. And so many people are not even aware that, their neighbors or the neighborhood where they live, things like this actually exist. So honestly, I will blame the government. I will blame the government, 100% for this, because it means they are not playing their role. If people can, smuggle explosives into their own residential apartments. Honestly, it means we are not keeping an eye. It means they can also decide to use.
This is a security lapse, isn't it?
Yes, certainly it is, because it means they can also use it to attack the government.
Exactly. It might as well have been attacked for all we know at this point. Let's do some rapid fire rounds, because we just have a couple of 2 minutes, I think, to spare. Federal government says they're still going to launch the student loan in January. Today is January 18, right? So just a couple of days, a week or so to go. NBC now, according to that court ruling from yesterday, Wednesday, has no powers to fine media houses. Your take on these two developments?
Well, let me start with the last one. I am very happy that, the court is giving this ruling. I would rather the media or the broadcast industry self-regulate than, the government to be the one doing it, because, the government has an interest, that is actually different from the rest of the populace. Sometimes when you do something that a minister does not like, he equates that to you taking on the national interest, and you wonder how, just bringing out something negative about a minister also translates into
bridging the
national interest. And then for the second one,
the student loan.
The student loan. This is something that the government promised, within the first few days of its existence. And they were the ones who actually promised January. Nobody forced them to say, you are going to do this in January. Now we are about exiting January, and then we're
students are practically back in school.
Giving people assurance, giving students assurance that you will have it in January. Honestly, I don't think it's good for the image of the government.
Well, from their side, they will say we still have at least some 12 days or so to go. So it's still part of January. But let's see what happens in the coming days and weeks.
All right. Before we let Malan Nasru go, we will get your perspective on what's happening in Zamfara. 10 communities have abandoned their location because they've been served notice of a possible attack, and it doesn't appear that the government's actions are reassuring enough. Practically, Zamfara state capital has become an IDP camp of some sort. What's happening?
Actually, it's not only in Zamfara. Even in Katsina State, so many communities are actually, fleeing. And then you wonder what, their homes, the activities that they used to engage in, their businesses, their farmlands, what will become of that. It means the terrorists will now have a free hand, to do as they wish. And sadly, you will never read a story about, like our drones, our fighter jets, targeting all these criminals. It's only when some citizens, are engaged in one lawful activity that, they make a mistake of either bombing them or targeting them. Honestly, we need to do something, because I don't think the urban centers, will be enough to accommodate all the people that we have in the country. We still need people in the outer skirts.
Okay, Mario Nasser, thank you very much as always for your invaluable insight and for joining us rather early than the usual time. Really appreciate you for joining us on Daybreak as always.
Thank you very much for
stopping by.
Thank you.